What up, guys? It is another episode of Modern Craftsman Monday. Well, Modern Craftsman Podcast on Monday.
It's always Monday, yeah.
And we have, what'd you call him? The
HVAC guy.
Ryan Anderson from Native Air Conditioning in South Florida.
A little bit of geeking out.
We did, yeah. We went through some math, and Tyler was like, "Guys, I understand it." Me and John are sitting here like,
he went a little Goodwill hunting over there.
I feel like we kept them pretty tame as far as like the super geeky HVAC stuff.
Yeah, totally. But totally. I think I like the fact that his mission was to get his industry on target to be more collaborative, and really fix that general contractor to HVAC relationship.
Yeah, I think he's doing his part to try and put his best foot forward, and I guess hope that the industry kind of follows suit.
Heck yeah. Give it a listen.
It's a good one. Enjoy.
Just another MC Monday.
So, Ryan, you hit me up on Instagram. I had posted something about, maybe it was on my feed.
Slid into the DMs.
Yeah. But the best part is I immediately, he gave me some feedback on some equipment, and we started talking about equipment. And I wanted to have him on the podcast because HVAC, it's funny, at the Fine Home Building Summit, they had said it's one of the trades that has the most issues with education and things like that.
They said something else.
They did, and I forget what it was, and it was definitely rude. But
it was accurate.
It was accurate. But so I wanted to have Ryan on the podcast, and in the time from me asking him if he would be on it to the time that he changed his screen name. And I literally could not figure out what his name was, but I'm glad that we reconnected today, and I'm glad you made time today. So, Ryan, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
So I'm Ryan Anderson. I own Native Air Conditioning in West Palm, Florida. I've been in the business about 16, going on 17 years now. I'm not that old, so I've been doing this since I was about 16. And it's pretty much all I've ever done. And like you said, I hit you up about a couple different things. It was like two different things, but and then you talked about having me on the podcast. And, when I got to thinking about it, because you guys come from, the general contractor side of it, I was really interested in being on it just because there are a lot of issues between, HVAC, especially the mechanical trades, and the general construction side of it. And there's a lot of things kind of brewing, so to speak, as far as like the lack of mechanical trades you can even get to bid your jobs. I don't know how it is up there, but in Florida, it's a big freaking problem.
Yeah. And to give a little context, you and I were specifically talking about the Goodman condensers. Yeah. And you had made, I think maybe a sarcastic comment, but we started talking about condensers in general and how
it's the Black & Decker for DeWalt.
But interestingly, Ryan, you had said that. Yeah, I'm jumping around a little bit, but you had said that they're all really the same thing.
In a lot of ways, yeah. Until you get into the super high-end units, when you're talking builder-grade equipment, for down here, it's different climate zones have different, bare minimum stuff. But builder-grade across the board, it's all pretty much the same stuff, more or less.
And I was sitting in my backyard when we were talking, and one of mine makes a horrible startup noise. And I had asked him about it. He's like, "Yeah, that's normal." And I was like, "Oh, I really was hoping you would tell me that I could fix that." You're like, "Well, you can rebuild the case around it and put some insulation in it." And
yeah, there's a few different things you can do. But, again, when it's a builder-grade equipment, for the most part, I mean, they're only so great because realistically they're builder-grade, which I kind of hate that word in a sense anyway, but that's
no, but I think the vendor in your industry is what pushes a lot of the equipment. Am I right?
Yeah. And whatever vendor you're set up with as a contractor, I mean, honestly, Goodman has its place too. Like there's a place for it. It's just using it in a $10 million custom home. Is that really the place for it? I don't think so. And that kind of just parlays into the other issues we have as an industry. I actually, because it's been so long since I talked to you, And then we were talking about going on the podcast and then lost touch or whatever. I actually did a survey on Facebook on 2 different HVAC owners and managers groups, just asking how many people do not touch new construction, period. Don't do it, nothing. And it's like 95% of HVAC businesses don't touch new construction because the margins aren't there, quote unquote. The time invested in the job, the BS on the jobs, yada, yada. And they won't touch custom. They won't touch tract. I can understand not wanting to do tract homes. I totally get that, but they won't even touch custom homes. I come from a very strong new construction background in Florida doing, Palm Beach Island, like where you see Donald Trump's house or the Winter White House is, and they're not your normal custom house. I mean, 13, 20,000 square foot, 30 tons, 40 tons of cooling. I mean, they're a whole different level of house that somebody lives in 4 months out of the year. But anyway, and then they go up where you guys live. But the point is, like, all these companies, they just don't touch new construction at all. And a lot of them have really good guys that are really good at this kind of work. So more or less, a lot of general contractors kind of get the bottom of the barrel. I hate to say that, I know there's some good guys out there, don't get me wrong. But a lot of the good, well-ran companies that are making the margins they need to make to train their guys and do the things they need to do and provide them with the knowledge, the materials, the training, everything they need, they really can't do that. And I do understand because I go through it bidding work too. I only have a handful of builders I work for a reason. We bid new work all the time. But when you constantly hear, oh man, you're $25,000 more than this guy or that guy, and you know why it needs to be there, it gets frustrating and you're like, why bother? And that's kind of the feeling throughout the entire industry. And it's not just air conditioning or heating for you guys, but it's electrical, air conditioning, plumbing, all of the mechanical trades completely.
Why do you think that's the case?
I think it's partially margin and stuff, and then it's partially just it's not the sexy work as I call it. It's just not.
It's the economy, though.
Yeah.
I mean, I think if you look back before the economy took off, I think people would take. I just know when I was doing more spec stuff or that stuff, guys would take on the custom stuff that you're talking about, like with homeowners and that stuff, but they'd also do the spec to keep the lights on. That would pay their overhead and all that stuff where the margin's tighter. But if I can guarantee them 5 builds a year, then these guys, that could pay all their auto insurance and all their health insurance and all that. So then they actually make more profit on the other jobs.
Right.
I guess, well, my question was against why do you think the margin's not there? Not why are they not taking, not why they're not doing new construction, but why are they avoiding why don't you think the margin is there for them compared to renovation?
Or even just service and installation. Obviously, that's always going to have a higher margin. That's obvious, but it's like not even in the same ballpark, And if you really know how to bid the work and recover your overhead, like I do dual overhead to bid my jobs, so I know I'm recovering.
What does that mean?
I know
Explain that.
The dual overhead method.
Yeah.
You guys know anything about bidding that way? It's a different way of bidding. I really don't know.
I think you just made it up. I have no idea what you're talking about.
I do triple.
No, it's called you're separating the easiest way I can explain is you're separating your labor and your materials as overhead, because labor drives overhead. That could be a whole own podcast.
Yeah, so you separate that and then you don't double dip.
Basically.
Yeah. So I do it too then.
Yeah. I mean, I was taught that, I didn't know anything about it. Somebody smarter than me taught me how to do it, honestly. And I still refer back to some of the sheets that I have from when I was learning how to estimate. But that's a lot different than some yokel going, I charged $5,000 a ton to do new construction. And that's common in the industry. So then when you're bidding against that, and then you have general contractors or developers seeing, going against a legitimate company that knows how to make their margin, even if they're smaller, and also deliver a quality product versus, what other people think the industry standard. And that goes for all of us in any trade.
Sure.
But the pool is a lot smaller in mechanicals.
So can we unpack that a little bit more? So like for me, I take my management hourly rate isn't what we pay the guys, it's what the guys cost us. So that's why so it's like, it's prorated at whatever rate that is. I don't have that doesn't add into my overhead and profit, because I feel like it's already, if I were to just give them the rate that they were paying, I'd have to change my overhead and profit, which affects too many line items on my quote. So management's is already calculated into what the cost is. That's opted out of the bottom line. That gets added into my overhead and profit.
So basically, you're assigning a different markup to labor and to materials. Especially on labor-heavy, lower materials jobs.
So
I don't know if that makes sense.
Do you also have to charge sales tax or no?
I don't. Okay. I don't remit to the state. We don't have state tax in Florida, so that's something I've never had to deal with personally.
Cowboys down there. Seriously.
Pretty much. I mean, I just, one of my buddies just got into a whole thing because he was doing it wrong. That's why I don't remit.
Yeah, you can get beat up quick.
Yeah, I think it's one of those extra things there's no reason to do it for me, at least. Yeah. For other people, maybe. I don't know.
To continue to unpack that, why wouldn't you just bill your actual cost or your man hours and then just put one fee on the bottom line that encompasses all the costs that go along with the employees? Because are you looking at them separately? Mm-hmm. Like each person has a different overhead to it?
No, I guess the overhead and profit that goes into every, let's say it's like kitchen cabinetry and tile and all that stuff. That's just a flat fee that's
just a percentage across everything else.
Yeah, so
subs and material.
There's more to labor for an in-house employee.
I got you.
Payroll tax, all.
So you're basically, if to simplify, your spreadsheet is all your sub and materials are here in the top, and then you're adding a percentage to that, and that's one portion, and then the second portion is, here are my hours and the hourly rate associated with each person that was involved in this job.
Right now we have a line item where we have XYZ management added into that. Let's say it's $85,000. Mm-hmm. So we don't break it up that way, where if I'm on site, because I don't believe in right now having guys track hours that way, because it's just bandwidth. I know we hate that line, but it's like if I had them doing that for an hour in the day, I would rather have them doing 15 other things, making phone calls, ordering stock, whatever it is, where I can't get that back every day. I remember doing hours myself, and I thought it was so irrelevant, where I have my numbers in there, and then I feel like I've done it before where way back for other companies where it is double dipping. So then you have that rate at $180 an hour, whatever it is, and then it also gets rolled into your O&P, and it's like, dude, what is that hourly rate when you're all said and done? $300 an hour?
Right.
And then you could do it that way and give yourself a little bit of freedom.
Yeah.
But when you get to these bigger jobs, when you're doing $2 million, and it's like that, these numbers get huge,
right? And
people want to eat them up, and go, hey, how do you break that? How do you break that up? What does that add up to? And it's like, when I can explain management as its own thing, and then have like a drop down box that's like, here's all the expenses with that, and then overhead and profit is just how we back office stuff, and how we bill and invoicing and all that stuff, and liability insurance and workman's comp, and not anything to do with payroll and insurance, truck insurance, and all that. I just think it's been easier for us. I've been doing it forever that way.
Yeah.
I don't know if it makes sense for you guys, but.
So I was looking down at my phone, and I was listening to you. I was trying to find an article. It's in an HVAC publication, but it's by a guy named Gary Elkes, and he's kind of somewhat of a big deal in the industry, like coaching and all that kind of stuff. And he just says, like in this particular article, that dual overhead assigns overhead to material and labor, creating two factors. We then use those to apply to each job. To break even before adding desired profit. Requires financial discipline. That's why it's not used commonly, and that is true.
Right.
There's a lot to it. That's why you can't really get into the whole thing. but it's very accurate. Like the two for us at least.
Mm-hmm.
And again, what you said about in-house employees and subs being two different things, that there's a lot of weight in that too.
Right.
You know, there is a lot more to an in-house employee, but when you're a mechanical contractor, you're going to use pretty much all in-house employees. You know, I have a few trusted subs that I use, but my in-house guys cost me more as a whole, especially in overhead, because they have a van they drive.
Right.
You know, they have all that stock and all that stuff, which I know you guys have some in-house guys too. So same thing. But
like, so if you were to give guys a raise, you know, next year, like you can effectively change your labor rate in your spreadsheet and not change your overhead and profit from maybe one job rolls through.
I understand. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you and I are talking, but it's for everybody.
No, I know.
right,
It's just that. I mean, that was.
I wasn't trying to stop you. I was just making the conversation.
I was coming
fluid.
at you hot.
Sorry, this is episode 88 of this.
No, but when you were talking, I was like, I remember having issues with this where then we were stuck where maybe we gave a guy a raise or we instituted health insurance or 401k, and then like you're stuck closing out these 4 or 5 jobs that were stuck at this other rate.
Right.
And it's like, dude, how do we do this where it's not like that, where we could send out an email like if it's a cost plus job saying, hey, as of January 1st, our rates are changing and this is why. And it sounds super weird, like you did it, and I was like, I remember fingers crossed, like how's this gonna go over? And it's like, no, they're like, we totally get it. You guys bust their ass, and it wasn't my company now, but it makes sense. But the change, did you give them an invoice, and then you went from like 18% to 21%? They would go, excuse me, what the hell are we looking at?
Right.
Exactly, makes sense. I mean, getting off the math part, because you guys especially will probably you have a way bigger following, so you'll probably get a bunch of accounting questions now. But you know, the two that I know and I was taught were gross profit per man day or man hour, and then later dual overhead. And dual overhead is all about recovering your overhead more accurately, and recovering all of it. Because a lot of guys just price on margin on a new construction job. And from our standpoint, you're going to lose your ass if you do it that way. At the end of the day, if you collect all your numbers and you're not one of these guys that just has a ton of money in an account and say, okay, we're doing good because there's money in the account this month. If you really break the numbers down, you're losing your ass. And that's just a fact of it.
Sure.
But that's a whole different ball of wax.
Yeah.
Anyway, the point is that when we do new construction jobs for our contractors that we work with all the time, like we just went to a meeting yesterday, they give us the job at a certain contract amount, but then we come in and we sit down with the homeowner and the builder every time. And these are all custom homes. We do a few specs for this guy, but mostly custom homes. And the truth is, you know, I have a joke that most of these customers have more money in doorknobs than they do in their HVAC system. I mean, it's true. And because all they care about is the marble and this and that. And that's all great. Like, I look at the work you guys do and it's fantastic. And especially the way you guys manage. I wish I had more of that here. But the truth is like, why would you skimp on the things that make your house livable? You know, and I know all those other things are pretty, but at the same time, it's what makes your house livable. You know, and it does matter, even though it's hidden. You
can't brag about it as a homeowner.
Oh, I know. I get it.
I have the sexiest HVAC. It's
of course,
so cool.
Course. Yeah. No, I get it.
On a hot day.
I get it.
Go ahead. Keep going.
I just said I get it, but where does the line fall that the HVAC contractor and or the general contractor needs to educate the homeowner on why it's important and why they should spend money on this?
And I think that's what, you know, we were at a summit last weekend, and we had talked about, I was talking to someone about how, I forget if it was in a magazine, I feel like we talked about this, but they had all these terms where they were going to start switching the names of things. Like, instead of a heating and cooling system, it's a comfort system. And
Right.
the reason that they were going to change it is because people can relate to comfort. Everyone just assumes that a house can heat and cool itself. But when you
Right.
introduce the word comfort, then it's like, well, what do you mean?
It's
I'm
relatable.
not comfort. Yeah, it's relatable. And
Right.
and what does that mean for my comfort? And obviously with everything in our industry, when things change, it's about education and educating the client and educating vendors and obviously educating the installers.
Right.
I mean, that's the point of this discussion right here. That was the point of our messages. Is that what that meeting with the client is for?
Yeah, I mean it's the both educate and ask questions from my standpoint. Um, I want to know, does the client entertain a lot? Do they have guests over? Do they cook a lot? Um, do they want their house colder than design standards? Like Florida, South Florida, where I'm at, the actual, design standard is 75 at 95, which means maintain 75 degrees at a 95-degree ambient.
I like
You know, my,
71.
I like 72, but
Yeah.
my house can do 72. There's a lot of houses down here that can't. A lot of them, and then not only that, like, are you the type that does a lot of outdoor living and you're gonna have your freaking back doors to your pool open all the time? Because I can design it to work. It's not ideal, but we can design it to work, and all these little things. Do you want to, if you do entertain a lot, do you want to zone the system off so you can cut off this room and this room and dump air into this zone when you have people over? We just had a guy today that's what he's going to do, and he couldn't find anybody to do it, like nobody even could come up with some kind of solution. It was actually pretty simple. A zone damper over here and size all the ductwork correctly, and we dump everything into that zone and you're good to go, basically.
So your contractors are coming to you and saying, hey, this is the budget for this build, and then having you meet with the customers to kind of go over and start designing their system?
Well, no, I bid the job per plan. So per bid set, I bid the job. And then, if that's accepted, which the 4 or 5 guys I work for, like those guys, I really don't have to bid it if I really didn't want to. But I always give them a real number. This is what it's at per plan for exactly this, for this equipment and this ductwork, yada, yada. But then once I have that, usually from there, either in pre-construction, ideally, or when they have the shell and their framing in and stuff, we might sit down again. Like the one I went to yesterday, they're at the shell, they're dried in, they've got all their framing. Then we sat down and we said, okay, now I want linears in all of my common areas. So that's a significant expense. So now they wanted linears. They wanted to move all the ACs up into the attic, which I don't agree with, and I'm trying really hard not to do, but it is what it is. And then just other things, like they had it bid for, and that was on the architect. They had it spec'd for like 16 SEER equipment, but this is like a 5-system, 8 or 9,000 square foot custom home.
So is it the contractors driving these decisions, or your customers, or both?
It's the contractor's honestly there just because I want him to know that I'm not trying to throw him under the bus or anything. And I want the contractor to make points on whatever I upsell. So if I upsell the customer, for instance, like yesterday, why would I put builder grade equipment in that house? Why? It doesn't make any sense.
Right.
So instead of doing, basically almost bare bones 16 SEER equipment, now they're going to get like 25 SEER Lennox equipment, good equipment. So they're going to go from the 16 SEER to that. But not only that, if more contractors did this, like, okay, we sit down, that job just increased by like, I think that my end of that job just increased 65 grand. So that contractor's management, I think he's getting 17 points on top of my contract for management. So it's a win-win for both of us. Like, it's a no-brainer. But most people I don't know if it's a territorial thing, but most people don't want that meeting to happen. I've had pushback, and I've asked contractors, let me sit down with these people. And then they usually let me do it. And they go, shit, now I'm getting 17% on an extra 65 grand, 50 grand. Like, not bad. Plus
Yeah,
the
so
custom,
I guess that's what I was asking is basically regardless if it's your like a bid set or a budget, you're kind of getting your number in the door with contractor or with the customer at that point, and then once you're ready to start actually looking at the work, you're giving them options to upgrade their system
right.
or change something that's other than just what's on the plan.
Right, right. I mean, I can only do what I can only do, right?
Yeah.
So we can only bid off a bid set, and it's not so much. It's not really a change order because we're coming in before we start anything.
Yeah.
So I'm not like halfway done with the work and going, oh, let's switch to all linears.
Sure.
Um, but again, it's kind of a win-win for everybody as long as you're from the general side. You're making your points for management, and the customers getting a better finished product at the end. Especially on custom homes, like it's a big deal. I think because I walk in homes all the time that are 100% flex duct, which flex can be done correctly. Don't get me wrong, but it's 100% flex. It's got 14 SEER equipment, and everything is screwed. All the ductwork's undersized, and then it's a bigger issue than just they use crappy equipment. It's an issue of now you have undersized ductwork hidden behind drywall. You're married to it now. So if you want to fix it, it's going to be a major expense. And fixing stuff on a 2-5-year-old home, whatever, it happens all the time. And that's kind of the bigger picture of all this, and this whole kind of conversation really is kind of addressing that so it doesn't happen, or at least happens less, I guess.
Are the bid sets typically like what are you looking at for a bid set? Just a floor plan, a design layout, or is there actual duct layout at that point?
Manual J's, are they done?
Yeah, is there a manual J?
It's a full duct layout, equipment schedule, ventilation.
So they're bringing in an HVAC engineer at that to some
Yes.
extent.
To do the design. Normally, either the architect has a design engineer, or there's a separate MEP designer.
So how does that happen? My mind's racing.
Right.
You put all those people in place, and then you're still able to upsell 65 grand. Like, I feel like any of my clients would be like, why wasn't it designed like that in the first place?
I get that question all the time, and once again, it comes back to education, and maybe the person that designed it thought that the end user wanted the cheapest possible. I think that's kind of the pervasive culture in the entire industry, honestly, unless there's somebody that only does ultra high end, which again, not every house is ultra high end, but there is a middle ground too. Everybody doesn't have to have the 65K. Somebody, it might only be $5,000 extra, 10 grand extra, but those things can go a long way. I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but I'm in my office. So it has.
Yeah, that's a full.
It has everything.
Right. That's honestly more than a lot of us work with at all.
Yeah. Not every job's like that. Sometimes I design them. I just try not to now. And honestly, it's for liability purposes. If I give it to a third party. They design it, I install it, and if their design's wrong, unless I see something like grotesquely wrong, I'll call them on it. But if it looks right to me and there's something wrong, at least I'm shedding liability off my company.
But on the flip side, if you're going in after something is designed and you're changing everything, or is it a conversation
that all gets signed off by an engineer?
So the conversation isn't are you starting that conversation with the engineer, or is it with the client first?
I go to the whoever the EOR is, engineer of record, and they say, hey, we're going to keep the sizes the same and yada yada yada, but we're going to get better equipment, and they just double check everything.
So you're doing that before you talk to the homeowner?
No, after.
So
I have to get them to say yes. Why would I pay an engineer after the fact or before the fact to say okay?
Well, I guess to John's point, right? Like I think about when we might change an architectural detail or an interior design detail, or we find something in the design that is flawed.
Right.
That is a question that comes up, it's, I paid for a designer on this. I paid for an engineer on this. Why am I having to pay for it to be redone when it to me it sounds like I didn't need that person in the first place. And
I agree, but I'm not the person that makes up the bid sets either.
Sure.
I'm not the architect and I'm not the design engineer.
Yeah, and I'm not asking you to advocate.
I feel like even from an architect's perspective, it's probably that architect probably uses the same systems and the same design for all the plans they put out, regardless of what house it is. It's just like windows. They spec certain type of windows.
Exactly.
And then you can go to them and offer something else at that point. But I feel like it's not... Unless that architect is an HVAC engineer, has somebody in-house, they're probably designing that house around other elements, and HVAC is just like, something that they're throwing in at that point.
I mean, honestly, whether it's CAD or whatever the hell they use, it's just a little box over there that they've got pre-made, and it's just a drag and drop. They just make sure the sizes are correct, and I've seen certain guys, it's the same freaking equipment every single job. All of the little details, like for down here, we have hurricane straps and all that, all of the hurricane straps, the unit hanging details, they're just drag and drop, because they don't have to redo them every time, So it's just a stock thing that they have and they put it on every plan. And I agree to the point that, you did already pay somebody to do this. But at the same time, if they've spec'd out the crappiest crap, then somebody needs to say something. And if you don't want to do anything with it, that's fine too. As far as, it's not so much getting redone, like what we do down here, as far as in my trade, we just do, we have a stamp from the engineer and I redline the plan with an as-built and it's done. That's all I have to do. Mm-hmm. I don't know about other states, other municipalities. I don't know, but I know how it works here.
So I got a question for you. Like when clients ask me, "Hey, can we bump this up to, Radiant?" And I have to have that conversation with them where I don't bring in my HVAC guys right away to have that conversation because I'm not going to waste their time. But like, let's say Radiant comes in, it's like, all right, well, there's multiple impacts beyond HVAC at that point.
I don't think he does Radiant down in Florida.
No, but I've touched it.
But if you let me go, is that it's like you have Radiant and then that touches hardwood flooring, that touches a lot of other things. Like when you're looking at these systems, like, are you saying we should up? Like it's weird to me that it's maybe sometimes just you there, where hey, there might be an opportunity to keep not the highest end mechanicals in there, but upgrade some of the insulation factors that go into this that can really impact, or where the glazing's placed in these houses that might be beyond your scope or your territory.
Pretty much every house I work on is all spray foam, all crazy impact windows because I'm in South Florida on the coast. That's every house now, pretty much. So usually, not always, but usually from that standpoint, the houses are pretty well taken care of. It's just a matter of really they're just speccing the cheapest crap and a lot. Just all there is to it. So, and it's not even that's necessarily a bad thing.
No, but why isn't the move talking to the engineer? Like going to the engineer and being like, hey, listen, like I've worked with you on a handful of these projects. You're constantly speccing this equipment. I'd love to kind of get you to sway in my direction because it would save me the extra step of selling it to the client and walk that particular person through.
Have you ever talked to an engineer?
I have.
Yep. I'm sorry.
I married one.
So some of them get it and some of them don't.
Yeah.
And then some of them say, okay, if I know it's going to be XYZ contractor and I'm going to have somebody that gives there, then I'm going to do something about it. But most of them I've tried talking to and it's whatever. And then on the flip side, there's some other guys, like it's a company called RGD Engineering in Jupiter that's fantastic. They spec everything to the T. They don't mess around. They're great. And there's a couple others that I work with that are fantastic, but not most architects aren't seeking them out. They're using whoever they use. I mean, you know how this industry is, it's all relationships. So whoever they have a relationship with, I don't
I
control
guess I
that.
feel like you would work with if you're developing relationships with architects, you're working with the same engineers over and over.
Believe it or not, a lot of them change.
Yeah.
And I don't always work with the same architects either. I have a couple architects in general,
Mm-hmm.
but general contractors are bidding everything that comes across their desk as far as custom homes are concerned. So it changes a lot.
Sure.
The main builder I do work for, the past 5 jobs were all 5 different architects, 5 different engineers, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Well, actually, 5 different architects, 3 different engineers, and then 2 of the jobs didn't have an engineer of record. So when it came time to talk to an engineer, I talked to the engineers that I deal with,
Sure.
and it's, easy peasy. But since they weren't involved from the get-go, what are you going to do?
I feel like
A loss.
it's tough because we're probably looking at it from a general contractor's perspective where Ryan's just handling one portion of that job and just wants to do one portion of that job well. So it's like, yeah, let's look at the insulation package, let's look at the window glazing. But realistically, I feel like that's a conversation with the builder. If you are working with the same builder all the time, it would be like, hey, let's design to this standard, let's integrate this to kind of aid in our HVAC package. But if that's not the way that you're doing it, I guess, the best thing at that point for him is to try and do the best work or integrate the best systems that he can into that. But I feel like it's a tough position to be in. If you were only working with certain builders, you could then have that conversation with them, who could have that conversation with the architects or engineers. But if you're just bidding stuff, it's tough.
Right, and the same thing goes, like the same builders I work for, they're already, like I said, they're already using all high performance windows, all, everything spray foam down here. It makes a huge difference. And kind of like Johnny said, you don't necessarily need to use the plus plus LTZ Cadillac system, but you probably shouldn't use the most bare bones system in a custom home either. It just doesn't fit. Not to mention the duct system may or may not be adequately designed. It just depends. But that's just, what I run into. And you're right. Johnny already also made a good point about it affecting other trades. When these homeowners go to somebody else's house and they see linear grills and now they want linear grills. I mean, that's a freaking major undertaking. Like, now you're affecting the framers, me, and the drywall guys and finishers, and it's way more work. I don't know how much you guys do them up north, but down here, at least for the type of houses I do, it's almost every house. So now everything's also metal frame down here, which is, I always kind of trips me out looking at your guys' Instagram stories and stuff. But now they've got everything metal framed, and now the customer goes, I want linear grills. When everything was all set up to that point. So now they've got to go in and cut in all the linear openings for us. And sometimes it's a lot of them, and it's a ton of extra money. And then you also have the drywallers and the finishers on top of that. And most of the ones we do are mudded in, so they're just completely sealed, just like 1-inch slots or whatever, 2-inch slots. It's a lot. And from the general construction standpoint, I mean, that's kind of where you guys come in, and you do have to think about all those extra trades. I mean, we think about it too. And there's times when we try to educate the client like this, it's not just us, but at the same time, if we're already doing the windows, the insulation package and stuff, we're just trying to move them into something that's going to be long-term viable, especially the ductwork in the system. If I had my way on every job, I wouldn't necessarily change every system, but I would change the ductwork in about probably 80% of them if I had my way, because that's something you really you're kind of married to it. You're not kind of, you are married to it. So if nothing else is right, that's what you got to get right the first time.
That's why we don't even do them. we don't even do ductwork designs because it's like I'm just going to change them anyways because whoever drew those most of the time for the price point hasn't taken it into any account for soffits, any of this stuff. Maybe because we haven't designed them yet, but it's like I'm going to just walk the site and go over what we're going to do and how we're going to approach it. It's the same as like a drain line, like the waistline for a plumber. There's so much thought that goes into where that sumbitch is coming down and where it's going to go and where it's going to navigate through this basement so it's not an eyesore that no client will ever know that. It's like that hidden secret. It's like, that may have taken, 4 hours of my life to make sure we mapped out how that was going and where it's going to live and all that. Dude, I got a question for you. I know how I can get passionate about like dealing with clients and final product. Like, what gets you up every day? Like, is it like when the AC first kicks on, you stand underneath the vent and it turns cold? Like, what gets you going for like HVAC?
I just want to do good work, and I want to do good work, and I want to, be known as a company that stands behind their work, puts out the best possible work with what I'm working with, and then also like. What got me as fired up about doing this for a living is that it's a good mix of using your brain and using your body your hands to make a living. There's not many trades that come close to how far technical you can really delve into this trade, because if you're a good HVAC guy, you're a tin knocker. You fabricate ductboard. In Florida, we use a lot of ductboard. I did both because I learned from a company that started up north. You have all of the AC specific stuff, and then you have radiant. You've got you're basically a plumber too, damn near, and you're also damn near an electrician. So all of those things together, like you never know. Just like most trades, even being a carpenter or anything, you never know everything. But AC is like. HVAC is just like, because there's so many different places you can go with it, and it's just always been interesting to me.
And I think that's why a lot of times these guys get trapped in this vendor relationship where vendors are driving the decisions that they're bringing to the client, rather than totally understanding how and what those systems are and how they operate and how they can be improved, and understanding the science behind it, because there are so many things that you need to be doing on that job. You're not doing the same thing. But to go back, to that meeting with your client, so it doesn't sound like you get terribly involved with kind of step one, where the engineer might start dissecting the envelope. You're assuming that the builders you're working for, they're putting in high grade windows, they're doing a good installation in the home, and they probably have reasonable air sealing details that they're that you're coming in and looking at the house and then going immediately right to the client, like, all right, I need to know, do you entertain? Are your windows open or are your windows closed? How often do you cook? And you're going right to that comfortability of that home. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, it's at the end of the day, it's all about comfort. I mean, it is about the installation and it lasting and all that good stuff. But at the end of the day, it's about the end user is comfortable in that home.
Yeah, and you're taking into consideration the windows and the installation. Because you're doing some sort of manual J, right?
Yeah, I mean, I always personally, not all the guys do this, but I always go over whoever did the manual J. I always go over it, and I always look at the insulation detail and stuff. And as long as it's adequate, then I know where we can go from there. If it's not adequate, I'm going to say something. It just so happens that the kind of houses I work on are always like balls to the wall, everything. Usually, except for their air conditioning until...
That's what I'm baffled by.
Right.
I know it's the stupidest thing, but it's all across the country. It's not just me in Florida.
No.
It's all over the place.
So how do you teeter between efficiency and comfort? Because I feel like with comfort being first, the efficiency it's almost a scale. Like you start putting more effort towards comfort and your efficiency starts going up. Meaning maybe you have more systems, maybe you're bringing in more BTUs because you want the home to react. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's
efficiency.
Huh?
Sorry, I'm confused.
Yeah, efficient, like using smaller equipment, not oversizing equipment, like being more conservative with your usage.
Okay.
I mean, I at least took from what you were saying that it seems like driving for more comfort, maybe your system gets, higher end or more efficient, I guess.
I figured those went hand in hand.
That's what I took from that.
Yeah.
No, I don't mean.
Maybe I'm misunderstanding you. I don't know.
I'm feeling like base code.
Yeah, I think I probably explained that wrong, but I look at super efficient homes, right? Mm-hmm. You know, they all the common theme that I'm hearing is that HVAC equipment is grossly oversized in a lot of these homes.
Well, we had to fill people in when we watched Jordan.
Yeah.
His talk. He's saying that most manufacturers, they don't make a model that's accurate to what the loads are in houses that we build now with close-up foam. It literally doesn't exist. And I believe him when it comes to like under 3,500 square feet, when you're putting a unit downstairs and upstairs, 2 units that are zoned, there's not enough loss in the first floor, and then you get that hypercycle. It's not what they called it, but
short cycle.
Short cycle, yeah.
And that's super common because guys just don't know what they're putting in, and some guys are just pumping out BTUs and manual J's that aren't that accurate.
That are wrong. Yeah, I mean, I see it all the time.
Well, it's like if you're
just meeting code at that point.
Yeah, and if it's like, oh, I'll just bump BTUs up to make sure I'm covered for cooling, but at that point, all right, now you're short cycling and you're not dehumidifying. And I'm talking like I'm more educated than I am, but this is something we just heard.
I always felt like putting in HVAC, I never put it in for dehumidification.
Right.
I'd always
when
put it in.
When they said that totally changed my thought.
I didn't get that. I was like, whenever I needed to dehumidify something, it was a big basement, like we're going to do it in the big one in Dover, I'm not going to rely on a system for dehumidification on that. Again, HVAC guy, jump in here. Mm-hmm. But it's like...
Depends on how far you want to go with it. I mean, HVAC... Okay, so dehumidification from an air conditioner is a byproduct of cooling. Okay, so... your AC is going to dehumidify as long as conditions are correct and that system has enough runtime. That's where short cycling comes in, okay? Mm-hmm. But what a lot of guys in the industry don't know, some do, some don't, an AC takes on average 14 minutes to start dehumidifying, 14 minutes of runtime.
I would just never rely on that. I would always...
basement's different. I don't think, at least...
True.
That's usually a standalone dehumidification.
Now, up north, it'd be a little bit different. Down here, your AC in the middle of the summer, it's going to dehumidify like a mug. But in the shoulder seasons, we have a good 4 months out of the year. My windows are wide open at home, But those 4 months out of the year, the people that don't open their windows, your AC is not really dehumidifying that much. It's not getting the runtime. If it's, 68 outside, and you have the whole house closed up and you want to maintain 72, you're really you're not having much load on there. It's not going to run very long. It's going to kick on and kick off. Now dedicated dehumidifiers most definitely have their place, most definitely. And the dedicated humidifier is just going to do its thing. It's just going to dehumidify. But an AC will dehumidify to a degree. It kind of depends on the space and what kind of load is on the space.
I just wouldn't depend on any of those variables. The more you're talking, the more I'm like, I'm out. I'm putting in a dehumidifier.
But that's where I wonder if
it's not always necessary to put in a dehumidifier.
Agreed.
It depends on the situation. It's definitely situation dependent, and there's also situations where you most definitely need to put in a dedicated dehumidifier.
I feel like it's only the basement though.
Yeah, right. At least for dehumidification, for standalone.
I feel like we're always adding humidity in the winter for the first floor and second floor.
Yeah, and dehumidifying
the
only in the basement.
Correct.
For the summer, because AC is not necessary down there.
Correct.
Yeah, it's all about whatever the latent load is. Whatever your humidity removal, whatever you need to remove in humidity. I don't know dick about basements. I live in Florida. I've worked on the road at times, but I live in Florida. We don't have basements here. Everything is slab on grade, built like a
So I guess that's where I was going with my question is that, rather than relying on certain loads and certain circumstances in a home, let's just add a dehumidifier to the home. Or let's just add this piece of equipment. And that's where I was going with the efficiency question is that, we're so focused on comfort that if we spent a little bit more time, could we use smaller equipment and make sure that we're engineering the circumstances?
Oh yeah.
That's kind of where I was going with the efficiency. Obviously, a higher end system is going to be more efficient.
Well, yeah, I was just going to say, it's not necessarily mutually exclusive or whatever. Typically, your higher end systems are going to deliver a little bit better comfort, and that's partially because of all their little doodads and what you can adjust. However, you could also have, there's been houses where, look, they don't want to spend the money on a, $25,000 air conditioner, but they'll get a middle of the road air conditioner and a good duct system and a dehumidifier, and they're in the game too. There's nothing wrong with that either. Or they'll go to, like a reheat coil. It's like something Lennox makes, which there's houses here in Florida. I solve problems with those. Maybe they don't necessarily need a dehumidifier, a dedicated one, but you have you'll see it, if there's any guys that do this for a living and do commercial, they have hot gas reheat, it's called. And there's, accessory coils you can put on the system that will, increase the dehumidification. That's an option. It just kind of all depends on the load and the situation, and et cetera. But you can most definitely play with the equipment. You don't always have to go to the most high-end thing, but at the same time, you kind of need to do what's right for the end user and not just put in the most basic garbage you can put in and call it good.
So how are you getting to that design? What's the conversation like with the client when you're asking these questions about how they cook and if they have outdoor living and things like that? Walk us through that conversation and how you go from bid set to your design.
So that conversation, I wish I had the damn thing here. It's at the other office, but I have a question.
Wait, you have two offices?
My shop. I'm in my house.
Jesus. The heck am I doing wrong?
Did you read all those books behind you?
I don't even know if Nick has two offices.
Are those kids' books? What are those behind you?
Yeah, they're big picture books. No,
Leighton Load.
My wife's an English teacher.
Oh, cool.
That's not even all of them, dude. There's 2 or 3 more that you can't even see. I may have to
2 or 3 more books.
Cases.
Oh,
cases.
This has turned into a.
Everyone's like, I want to see.
Oh yeah,
this is a podcast, guys. Sorry.
It's like it's like Martinez with his
a lot of
farm.
books.
Yeah, there's books aplenty, and then you can't see the other one right now. But yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot.
You know what? You know what Jordan said at the conference was that they think that most HVAC is going to turn towards mini splits in the future.
They keep saying that, but
not in Florida.
No, I put in a ton of mini splits. We put in 100 and some mini splits last year alone. But
why were you reluctant to believe? Why are you reluctant to believe that?
Because a lot of people don't want to look at them straight up.
Yeah,
but I feel like that's got to be an easy fix.
No, I mean, let's be
for
honest.
you, because you can get anyone to make something.
No, Nick just puts an NS Builder sticker on it and be like, look how pretty that is.
He's like, yeah, we got our steel guy in to fabricate a steel lion covering the split unit.
No, but I mean, they
got ducted mini splits.
Right. Why can't, why?
Which is a different story. I mean, if it's ducted, is it really a mini split?
Wow, you breaking news.
I don't know. Why isn't it?
It's like TMZ over here.
No, I mean, yes, they're based on a mini split style condenser. We do those. We do VRF a lot, and sometimes they'll have, which is variable refrigerant flow systems.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Nick looked at me. I'm not making eye contact with you. I have no idea.
It's probably a lot more common in commercial up there, I would think. I don't really know.
But do you still have on I mean, I haven't installed a ducted mini split. I did once. I should say that. So yeah, no, I know the answer. Forget it, God. I was gonna say, I thought mini splits people also hate the fact that you can't have a nest. You have to have this little remote thing. That's
not necessarily the case.
No, you can have nest now
on them. You don't have to necessarily. You may not be able to put a nest on it, but you can put. There's certain compatible regular thermostats with them.
We've done a nest on a Mitsubishi. You had to buy a device that.
Look at you! It is breaking news. Look at this place.
Yeah.
Huh?
Don't tell them. Don't tell them it can't be done.
My point is you can do a 1-to-1, which is like Mitsubishi makes one. It's like the P series, which is a ducted like regular air handler, with like a mini split style condenser. That fantastic system, probably the best air handler on the market in my opinion. It's just built fantastic. The build quality of the cabinet, the insulation, everything about it, they're fantastic.
I wish people could see you right now getting all jazzed up about HVAC.
Yeah, I know.
Look at you. Just lit up.
They're great. But we use those, but they're freaking expensive, man. That's just all there is to it. They're a great product, but they're expensive. And then they have the cassette units, which they have the ducted cassettes, or they have like the ceiling mounted ones. You can have a one-way that blows one way. You can have them 4-way. They have a built-in condensate pump in them. They're great too. Just depends on the application. But again, it has like a mini split style condenser, but at the end of the day, at least for me, maybe I'm wrong, I don't know. But when I think of mini split, there's a freaking head on the wall, period.
Right.
That's just all there is to it for me. But you also have the option to do like these VRF systems we do. We did one that was like 30 tons of cooling. So you have one outdoor condenser. I think you did a job that was VRF, Nick.
30 tons.
Pretty sure.
I did?
I'm pretty sure you did one at one point in time. It was a Mitsubishi. It was a while ago. I've been following all you guys for a while.
We did two Mitsubishis. One job had 2 ceiling cassettes, and the other one had 2 head units.
Okay, I'm pretty sure you did a Pumi, which is a Mitsubishi PUMY series.
Hyperheats?
Yeah, I think it was. I can't remember.
They were both hyperheats.
Yeah, you had a couple systems running off the one condenser, right?
Yes. Yeah.
I can't remember the exact job, but that's that's one of that's basically what I'm talking about.
Okay.
So a VRF system, like we have it's called the city.
Nick's doing jobs that he doesn't even know he's doing.
He has no idea. He's just yupping you to death.
He's like, yeah, I think we did one of them.
Of course we did. Yeah. Probably 2.
I'm just gonna yup this guy. No, it's like this one job is like 30 tons of cooling. It's one condenser outside.
Yeah.
It's like a bank of 3, but it looks like one. And then we had
30 tons.
Yeah, some of these houses out here. Have you ever been to Palm Beach Island, like Star Island, any of these places down here?
Are they really doing closed cell foam? Or is it just is it like coffee cups put in the wall? Like, what's going on down there?
Say that again.
Are you really doing closed cell foam in the walls?
Yeah, they do open and close depending on situation and stuff. It just depends.
It's just Florida. I feel like they're still doing fiberglass.
No, I haven't seen fiberglass on a job, and I take that back.
Yesterday.
I take that back. We did what the hell is that called? The stuff you guys use all the time. Rockwool. There was Rockwool on a duplex I did a while back.
So are they doing? Are you guys insulating the roof line and then putting the units up there?
Hot roof. Everything's hot roof. Wow. Almost every job I do.
Look at Florida, just stepping it up.
They've been doing that since 2006, probably. I started doing those.
Yeah, then the hurricane took it all away.
Pretty much. No, well, that was 2 years after the hurricanes. 2004 is when we got hit with like 4 in a year. That was a crazy year.
How about HRVs, ERVs? What are you guys doing there?
We don't really do that much because you don't want to pull in Florida air back into the space.
Hold on. I want to get to that, but I want to finish the Mitsubishi talk.
Okay, yeah, let me go back to that. So
wait, Nick's trying to find out what he did on his job.
So it's
what did I do again?
It's like a 30-ton capable condenser. I think we had like 21, 22. indoor units, multiple branch boxes. But the point is that we had ducted air handlers, ducted cassettes, ceiling mount cassettes. We had there was like 3 different server rooms with all the Lutron and all the other crap that, you know, all that stuff they do now. But those were all just regular wall heads because nobody had to see those. You know, that's they didn't care. They're like in crawl spaces and hidden places. But all the main areas were all pretty much individually zoned, you know, 1.5 ton, 2-ton systems of some sort.
In my understanding, VRF, you said variable refrigerant fluid, as you have one condenser. Flow. Sorry.
Yeah.
One condenser that can feed multiple heads, but at different rates and different temperatures.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Right.
Yep. Yeah, they've had this technology in Japan for like 30 years, in Korea. It's like just now, you know, leave it to America for it to just be getting kind of popular over here. I've been probably messing with those for.
So do you, besides the aesthetic, because it sounds like we can get away from that with these more traditional style air handlers, do you see this stuff shifting towards more VRF stuff?
Oh yeah. Yeah, for at least the big custom houses and even a lot of commercial.
Why wouldn't it be the smaller homes?
You could do it in smaller homes. It's just, at least in my experience, people don't want to pay the money in the smaller houses that comes along with it, because while they're fantastic and they're super efficient, they're also very expensive. And you also need to have an installer that knows what the hell they're doing. You know,
what's it
it
like?
Does happen.
What's the upcharge? Is it double?
It's hard to quantify, but if it was just like a 1-to-1 system, you're probably, most contractors talking 40-50%. If it's just a 1-to-1 system, it's probably the easiest way I can explain it.
Sure. Meaning one condenser, one air handler.
Exactly. Yeah.
Versus one VRF and one head.
Yeah. So it would be basically the mini split style condenser with like a ducted air handler. So you're almost traditional. The only difference is the equipment. But just on that, you're probably going to be anywhere from 30 to 50% more ish. You know, it's again, it's hard to quantify it. But
on the flip side, what are the benefits to doing that in a smaller home?
It's way more efficient. The equipment is better quality, better control your comfort, etc. Basically, on a smaller home, I actually, while I love the equipment, if you don't really see the point in having, you know, the better efficiency and all that stuff, then it may not be for somebody in a smaller home, honestly. Where you really see it is in these, you know, I call those houses we do resimercial, because they're not your normal.
Get that hashtag ready.
Yeah. They're not your normal like residential house. It's just not the same. I mean, those builds go on for sometimes years. You know, I mean, they're crazy. But again, 1-to-1, it may not be worth it to somebody. But you know, I mean, that's what I have in my house, just because I like the technology. I like the fact that, you know, I have the Mitsubishi up in the attic, the ducted air handler, but then it's actually not efficient. But like on my back porch, I have literally on my open screen back porch, I have another head that just blows on where I sit. It's so freaking hot. I mean, you go out there and just sit and you're like dying. Doesn't help that I'm fat either, but I mean, you're just dying. And then in my shed, I have another one.
So these are all extras that you ordered on jobs by accident?
Yeah, extras.
Did you say shed?
What's that?
You say in your shed?
Yeah, in my shed.
What do you?
So it's attached to the house.
You just run a ductwork out there?
No, it's a mini split. It's an actual wall-mounted mini split.
In his shed.
And it's tied to the condenser.
A head in my shed. Yeah, it's tied to. They're all tied to the same condenser. So all 3 go all to one condenser.
So what? All right, that air handler in the attic. Can you now zone that?
If I wanted to, I could. I don't have mine zoned. I don't really. For me in my own house, I don't want to crawl my fat ass up there and fix it if the zone damper breaks. I'm just being serious.
No,
I do it all day at work. I don't want to do it at home.
Sure.
You know,
But it would be done tradition. It would be done.
Yeah,
Just
it's all ducted traditionally.
Yeah.
You know, but it was all done by us, me and my guys. So
Sure.
I know everything's right. It's all sized correctly. So I really don't have any problem with, having any kind of flow or anything.
Yeah.
We have returns in every room. I have like the Florida version of Johnny's Money Pit, basically, So living in like a 1938 house in South Florida that's on a crawl space, it comes with a whole bunch of problems. It's also wood frame. I always said I'd never buy a wood frame house in Florida, but this is all Dade County pine and oak and pecky cypress, and it's just a cool house, so I bought it. But then I get all the fun stuff that comes with it, But like one of the first things I did was a new AC system. But
I'm surprised.
I know it's usually not how it works, right?
I would have thought something different from you,
Yeah. Well, I was gonna do some other stuff, and I wish I wouldn't have done it because then I had a freaking pipe burst in my kitchen. I got to rebuild my whole kitchen now. So
have Nick build it.
I was just gonna say the same thing. He's got the cabinet shop and shit. Yeah, just ship it down to me.
Well,
I might have to. Seriously.
I didn't realize they did so much steel framing down there.
It's everything.
Really?
And commercial, yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean even any regular house, other than any kind of like bearing wall or whatever. Obviously, it's all metal framing. But that's why when I look at
they don't do the bearing walls in metal.
Wow.
No,
it's probably a CMU block.
No, it's everything's either block or like if it's a real structural member, it's gonna be either steel, like red steel, or it might be 2x6s.
Yeah.
Or
well, you can.
Whatever
I mean, you can do bearing walls with.
I mean, I have
metal.
seen it. I have seen it, but it's probably cheaper. It probably saves some money or whatever.
I gotcha.
I mean, their reasoning for the metal studs here, from what I've been told, is just that they're straight as an arrow. And from what I've seen, like I'm always installing linears on them and stuff. As long as the framers are good, that's always the caveat with anything. They're just like laser straight always, every time, which is a good thing. But then I see what you guys do with the wood, and I'm like, oh my god, it's just a different way of doing it. But I know they do it other places like that too. Mm-hmm. So I don't, there's good things about it and bad things about it. Like
for sure.
Put one of those interior walls up against the ones in my house, like an old school 1938 house. I'd put my walls up against that shit any day, because I know, these have been standing since then for a reason. And even honestly, like the interior walls on the stuff that you guys build, there's really no comparison. But it's straight.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Going back to John's question about ERV, HRV. So you guys don't do any. What do you guys do for fresh air intake? Or how do you
shut the windows?
Either a ventilating dehumidifier, because again, you don't want to pull in 90-degree, 80% humidity air in a house and then just dump it in the space. That would just be stupid. So at least down here, you guys don't really have that problem in the northern climates.
Oh, it's the same as bringing in 10-degree air.
Yeah, I guess that's true. That's true. That makes sense.
We're running it typically into the air handler.
Okay, you guys run it into the.
So we would dump our
air handler.
Our fresh air into the to the return side of the air handler. So when it's running, it would temper the air up to the temperature.
Good condition.
Cooled or heated. When it's not running, and if say the ERV is running, it basically disperses fresh air through the returns into the home.
Okay. Generally speaking, here in Florida, we do a ventilating dehumidifier.
How's that work?
It's basically you have a fresh air intake, that brings the air in, and then it runs it through a dehumidification process and dumps it in the space, essentially.
Same.
It's pretty much the same thing. Mm-hmm. It's just a little bit different. And then with fresh air, we either do it that way. It kind of depends on the design and the space and everything. And I know I think it was one of the things you and I talked about, but like a lot of times if it's a matter of a range hood, and that's why we got to bring in fresh air, we'll normally try to design it in such a way that it works aesthetically, but to where it's just like a big loop.
Hmm.
Like a lot of times we'll put the grill in the face, like the face of the hood. So when the hood turns on, it's just a big loop pulling it through, or hide it in some other way.
Right.
And if that's the case, then we won't really worry too much about what kind of air we're pulling in, because we interlock a relay with the hood. So only when the hood comes on
Right.
does that damper open and bring in that air. Otherwise, it's just closed.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest issues we run into. And the last two we've done is exactly that, is we brought fresh air in front of the hood. So it's like a commercial hood where your makeup air is dropping in front of the exhaust, and it creates that circular motion. Essentially, I guess in theory it's supposed to help pull the steam or smell, whatever, the fumes off the cooktop back into the hood.
Right.
Because it's in the past it's been designed to dump cold air into the toe kick or into the basement, or you bring it in, you run it through a heater, and now you're pulling a ton of wattage for an electric heater to heat up air. In our case,
was that like the last one you just did, right? Like it had it running through a duct heater, I believe.
Yeah, our takeover job.
Yeah. And yeah. Okay.
And that's
one of the ones I was thinking of.
Yeah, and that it comes down from the roof, runs through a fan, heats it up, and then disperses it into the living room, which is adjacent to the kitchen. Which we've been trying to get it closer to the hood. We can't do the hood within a hood setup, but it looks as though it's going to end up.
We were talking about going under or something.
We were. Unfortunately, there's steel there.
Yeah, I figured that was going to happen.
Beam penetration.
It's just one of those things. I talked to a bunch of the dudes on the owners group just about the various. It could be being that I do new construction, and we do turn a profit off of it, because you have to take
you upsell every job with $60,000.
No, it's not every job. Trust me.
It's got to be a decent margin there.
It's not every job, but there's a lot of freaking labor that comes along with that too. So there's a reason just like everything, there's a reason it's there. But and sometimes you hit that meeting and they just don't give. They're like, whatever, I don't care, whatever. And that's happened plenty of times where they only want to change a couple little things. So sometimes it works good, sometimes it doesn't. But at the end of the day, I was talking to a lot of these guys on that group, and I'm like, well, why don't you do it? Why don't you do it? And you get a lot of crap like, all GCs are scumbags, and you're like, well, that's not the case, because I work for a few great ones, actually. Money's always there. Yeah, true. Maybe in their area that's the case. I can't say, but I like to try to take things with a grain of salt as far as that goes, because I do know some great ones, and I've fired some too, like that I worked with that were just terrible. But that's just kind of a learning curve, I think, for any business owner, especially in the trades. But I do think if more of these things don't start getting addressed as far as, what the mechanical trades get paid and stuff, there's going to come a time where either the guys that are left doing new construction are going to be like, that's my price. If you don't like it, find somebody else to do it. Good luck. Because that's already happening.
How big is your team?
I've got 5 guys total, and then I have some subs that I use too. And I'm lucky to have the guys that I even have.
So, how do you retain them? Because I think that's one of the biggest things I see in your specific industry is training is such a big issue. There's not you mentioned it early in the podcast that guys aren't making the margins that they need to train the guys in the manner that they need to be trained. Right. So what are you doing that's different, and how do you because I think that's something that HVAC guys are going to listen to this and be like, yeah, this guy's great, and he works in South Florida, and he builds, he works on 10,000 square foot house, but I can't even get a guy to install a regular condenser, never mind a fancy one.
Well, the one thing I'll say before I start that is that while South Florida, I build, work on big houses, I don't build them. That's what you guys do. South Florida is also the land of the $3,200 change out. So like existing installations are so ridiculously cheap in Florida, like it's hard to sell them at margin. So
Mhm.
like there's that component too, that like that's a lot to overcome, honestly. And service too, because the service and change out side of the business is and will always be the bread and butter side of my business, period. Pretty much any company, unless they're a behemoth juggernaut new construction company, which I've worked for those too.
So I feel like I'm out of the loop on this, but didn't they change the Freon? So how does the change out work?
So for us in Florida, because a lot of the refrigerant lines are not accessible. In
Yeah.
Florida, we typically reuse the same lines, but we flush them.
Okay.
So you can flush them, and honestly, the manufacturers have come out, and most of them just have recommended just flushing them with pressurized nitrogen instead of using. There's a thing called RX11 flush you can use to get any residual oils, because the old style refrigerant was like mineral oil, and the new one's polyester oil. They're not compatible.
You know,
But if you blow them out really well, it's fine.
you know what
I
the
mean,
crazy fact that Jordan came up with? Remember the off gassing created by the Freon?
Mm.
It was like the carbon load that you release if you have a leak in your
And the new stuff.
yeah,
And the good stuff.
and the
he
good
said.
stuff. The
Yeah.
more like that was crazy. It's like
Yeah,
a jetliner.
they're going to be changing it again. I mean, January 1, 2020, there's like no more R22.
I remember the last time everyone was like buying out like surpluses of the Freon so they'd have it for service calls. Remember
Yeah,
that?
well, it went up in price so
Yeah.
significantly. I was just getting ready to go on my own at that time. Like I was checked out of working for other people, and I bought a bunch. I think I bought a pallet at that time, and I just used it up. And I'm probably going to buy some more because I have some refrigeration clients that are R22. They have no need to replace right now, so I'll probably buy a bunch just so I have it. But it'll still be available. There's a lot of companies going around saying, "Oh, it's outlawed, it's illegal."
Yeah.
January 1, and that's complete bull. It's not true. They're just not producing anymore. You'll still be able to buy it for a while, but eventually it's going to thin out, just like R12 did back in the 80s or 90s or whenever it was. That's
It's
before my
crazy
time.
that I remember R12. God,
R12, it's the best refrigerant ever made. I mean, honestly, I had an old truck that was R12, and then, but I don't want to get into that. Anyway, it's just good stuff. So is R22. But anyway, as far as the guys goes, I'll get back to that. I pretty much let them do whatever training they want to do. If they see something they want to go. Like we're all going to the.
But that's unique to guys that really want to be in this industry.
This is true.
So-
But I really don't want guys working for me that aren't invested in it. I mean,
Fair. But where are you finding those guys?
a lot of them is because I managed some other big companies and stuff, and I met a lot of guys. And I also, towards the end of working for other people, I subbed for a bunch of different people. So I met guys, and I always had the idea, like the thought that I'm gonna go out on my own. So I try to cultivate relationships in an intentional, like, I'm gonna go out on my own, and these good guys, I want to be able to try to make an impression on them so I can bring them with me when the time comes that I'm ready. So my first like really good experienced guy I hired was that way. We worked together at literally 3 different companies, and he's like a rock star guy. And I lost his number, and I ran into him in traffic and like flagged him down, going out of my way to catch him. And I was like, "Dude, when are you gonna come work for me?" It just so happened that he was working for a union shop, which union's not too busy in Florida necessarily, and they're just not as strong as, I guess I should say. And we worked together at this particular shop, and I said, "Dude, what's up? When are you going to come work for me?" And he was like, "Well, I'm only working like 10 hours a week right now, so I'm all yours." And it started just working in his off time, and then he realized the money, the working conditions, everything was better. He had everything you need. Like, you don't have to fight and scrap to get all the materials and all, just little things like that. Just they all add up, So he came over full time, and now, I mean, that was like 2 years ago and change, and then it kind of just ballooned from there. One of the guys that works for me is a longtime friend of mine, but I suggested he get into HVAC because I thought he'd be good with it, like probably 8 years ago. And then I kind of let him work for other people and stuff. And I've been on my own for a while now, but he kept working for other people. And then eventually when I was ready, I brought him on as a full-time tech, gave him a van and everything. And that's kind of what I've done. And then I just kind of talk to people as far as recruiting goes. Like I have that mindset of always be recruiting. I'm always talking to people. I make the time to talk to the guys at the supply house, meet people, go to events, whatever, and just talk to people. Even if I'm not hiring, I'm hiring.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that everybody in the trades needs to do that. You need to always be recruiting, even if you aren't hiring necessarily. You never know when a rock star is going to walk through your door, or you're going to meet one at the freaking store, or wherever the case may be. You might meet a guy that's fired up about carpentry or whatever it is, and find that person that you can try to find a spot for it. For me, I hired my guy Ray when I really didn't have enough work to keep him full time, but I knew that he was a guy that could kind of change the game for me. I had just a helper at the time, and I knew this guy, I can throw him on a job, put him in a truck, and he can go make me money, and he can handle the jobs. I don't have to babysit him, and then I can concentrate on doing what I need to do as the owner. And it really, in the very, very beginning, it was rough because he makes a lot of money. But it worked out because I was able to sell way more. I was able to answer the phone more. I was able to do everything more, do more of the admin stuff. And then, all the training, like all of us are going to we're shutting down. Like no work is getting done. We're going to the AHR Expo in Orlando in January. And there's a training event. There's a guy named Brian Orr. He does the HVAC school podcast. He does a lot to educate the industry. A lot. And, great guy. I got a buddy that works for his company. He's got like a training event for a couple days before. So we're going up there like 5 days or something. Everything paid for, like they don't have to pay for nothing. And then not only that, like my company is also like young in time established, but also young in like I'm dreaded millennial, I guess you could say, whatever, I'm like 33. So I understand like the guys that are in their early 30s and kind of what's important to them too. At least I like to think I do, because they all seem to be pretty happy working for me. But I don't, I appreciate what they do for me. I take care of them, compensation wise. And, if they need something, whether it's time off or, whatever it may be, I'm pretty much there to a degree, but I'm also their boss at the same time, and they also know I'll jump right in there with them, but I would also never ask them to do anything that I wouldn't do and haven't done myself. And then, it's going to be kind of a shameless plug, but I do the like profit first thing. That's kind of how I run my business at, like on the cash flow management side. And I started doing that probably over a year ago, but somebody gave me the book like a few months in the business, and it really kind of changed everything too, like the way I was doing everything as far as that part goes. And if I didn't do that, I couldn't kind of manage everything and be able to pay them what I pay them. I know I couldn't, and just kind of allocate everything out the way that I do. So if I didn't have that, it would definitely be a hindrance for me.
You're talking about Michael McAllowitz, Profit First.
Yeah, Mike McAllowitz, and then Sean Van Dyke, wrote the for contractors part, which did help me too, because I had some problems instituting it in a construction business.
Sure.
At first.
So the segregation of bank accounts is essentially what it talks about, and making sure that you're making a profit first, and you're setting money aside for taxes, owners, and then obviously the account for payables. But right. Is that the reason you implemented that was so you could be dedicated to your team as necessary?
Yeah, both myself and my team, honestly.
What's your role with the company now? Like, what is your day made up of?
Sales, running around, making sure the guys have what they need. If I try not to make them run out of their way, so I'm actually looking for somebody to be a runaround right now, but I can't find anybody that I want to hire. But that's besides the point. But making sure they have everything they need, taking a bajillion phone calls, I do pretty much all the sales calls, whether it's, unit replacement, meeting with contractors, all that kind of stuff. I pay a third party service for the most part to pull my permits because I just don't have the time anymore to do it. If I can avoid staying out of the building department, I do.
Story of my life. Just chasing rot, right, John?
Yeah.
Yep. Turned into something we weren't expecting.
I try not to.
I'm heading down to the township office after work.
I thought it was a lot easier in New Jersey.
I mean, to have a license, it is. It's
just that part.
I mean, permitting's all I feel like it's probably very similar to everything else. It's like the normal amount of inspections most townships own, or if they subcontract out their inspections, it's not like a private party. You can hire a private party if you want to.
Right.
But
they have that here too.
Yeah, I mean, I don't because it's free with the township, and there's like a bunch of different inspectors.
Hold up.
What?
Stop.
Pause.
I've never heard of hiring out an inspection.
Yeah, so like there's townships that are super busy, and you can hire somebody who will sign off on your inspections for you.
I usually get if you pay my after hours fee, I'll be there right after hours, but otherwise you're gonna have to wait a few weeks.
Private party that they're trained, and they're basically, if it's a building inspector, an electrical inspector, and you can have them sign off.
So it's like an affidavit, like an engineer's affidavit,
everything else.
I guess.
Yeah.
Basically, you're just not using the township inspector, so you could have everything done and signed off on, and
including
close it out.
a permit. Or do you still have to pull the permit?
No, you still submit the permit through the township, but then if you don't feel like waiting or scheduling with the township inspector, there's some towns that are crazy busy. Like the turnaround to get an inspector there, if it's an inspector that just is like hassling you for whatever, they have private party inspectors who, will go anywhere and sign off on or fail you on an inspection. It doesn't need to be the township inspector. They're all inspecting what's supposed to be the same thing.
You've used the word township more in the last 30 seconds than I've ever used in my life.
City,
town,
municipality, whatever you want to call it.
No, that's too.
You know what's funny is that Pine Hills, that big development down the Cape for Massachusetts, they were gonna bring in so much work that the town inspectors couldn't keep up, so they actually had to hire their own inspectional service that had their own office in Pine Hills. That all they did was they were accountable for inspections because they were going to put up so many units so quickly that the town had no ability to keep up with it. So it is more doable or reasonable, I guess.
Yeah.
Here,
even down the shore a couple of years ago when they had all the hurricanes, before they instated basically that like
hurricane exemption.
Yeah, it got to a point where basically they were like, unless you're changing stuff or switching layouts, that you don't need a permit. But prior to that, there was such a hang up because there was massive amounts of damage and nobody could keep up with the inspection. So in order to go through that whole process, people were hiring private party inspectors to come and sign off on stuff. Otherwise, you'd be waiting weeks, months for somebody to get to you when every single house on the entire island is, gutted and getting put back together.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we have something similar here, but like it's not that. I mean, I guess you probably could hire the private services because there's several of them. I've never tried.
Yeah, I haven't either. I don't have a need to.
Yeah, I mean, I would have to know I was going to do that for me to do it, But the point is that the town may have one guy, and then they have a couple of supplemental private guys that will come out to supplement, the one guy, or, like one town has a guy that he's older, like baby boomer age guy that's about to retire, but he has a ton of vacation time and all this stuff built up, and he's just coasting. Like he told me the last time I saw him, I got 2 years of sick and vacation time. They only give me 25 cents on the dollar. It's use it or lose it, and I'm burning it up. You won't see me again. have a nice life. So now it's only the hybrid inspectors. That
Dude,
you
he's
get.
out by 3:00 every day. Like, how tough is that life?
I know.
That's like school teachers complaining. You get the whole summer off.
Oh, I mean, my inspector today is a union carpenter, the building inspector. He gets done. They work 6 till 2:30, and then he goes and inspects for like 3 different townships. I was like, dude, you're hustling right now.
Dude, and he probably gets a pension. I tried to do that when I was 23. The position came up as assistant inspector, and I went after it in Malden. It was totally political. I met with the mayor, and he was like, "It's between you and like my son." And I was like, "So I'm not getting the job."
No, I'm not getting the job.
But it was like I had to go in 3 days a week from like 2 to 4 and just work the desk, and I would get a full pension. I was like, "Yeah,
Done.
I'm going for that."
Yeah.
Right.
If that were my job and I was the inspector, I would just put on headphones and be like, yo, I can't talk. I'm in and out of here, and just bang out all my inspections. People trying to be nice to you so you don't fail them. I just be like, listen, yeah, like I'm just here to do my job. Leave me be. What am I looking at?
Just walking and be like, "Where's your code book?"
Yeah,
You don't have one? Fail.
it's true.
Ryan, I want to hit at least one more technical thing. So you had sent me in our conversation. I knew I wanted to dig into this concerning
Formula.
square inch or feet of returns being enough for systems and not being noisy to avoid client complaints. Hearing that fan noise.
Right.
And this was, I think, you're probably in relation to a couple posts we did where we hid some of the returns underneath cabinetry, making sure we had enough clear airspace so we weren't going to get that sound, when the system kicked on. I'm not even going to read what you wrote because I think you'll do a better job explaining it.
Okay, yeah, I'm trying to go back to it real quick just because I have it in here, and I think it's a little easy if I just have it in front of me. I know the stuff, but it's hard to get it all out. So basically, when it comes to returns in general, I mean, there's a very set parameter for them to not be noisy. That's set from, ACA and the people that make up Manual D, Manual J, and all that stuff. And I think you had said, like in a story or something, like, don't worry, the return's bigger. I just haven't cut it all out yet. And I just made me send the message to you. But basically, without getting crazy technical,
Dude, geek out, baby.
you don't want to exceed 500 feet per minute for a non-filter back grill.
Why?
Because it will
What does
be
that
noisy.
even mean?
So basically, that's the face velocity of the grill. It might confuse you more. That's just how much the face velocity of the air moving through that grill.
I totally get it.
is
now.
going.
How are you calculating that?
So let me make it even worse now. So
This is the only way that I'm going to make sense of this because
all right,
just
so
Tyler will be
basically,
the
I
People
said,
driving right now are going to be like, "What?" Everyone pull over, grab a notebook.
so for a non-filter back, like let's just say it's an 18 by 18 grill. The way it works is
that's like 250 square inches roughly.
yeah, I don't even know. I
Let's
didn't
say
even do the math,
18
but it's
by
basically
18. Oh no, three.
so you're calculating the velocity. So if your maximum velocity equals 500 CFM, the way to do the actual, because you don't want to, basically your is 500 feet per minute rather. So your maximum CFM equals 500, and then it's like times 18 by 18 in parentheses divided by 144. So you do the 18 by 18 first because
324 divided by 144, 2 1/4.
So it's
500 divided by 2 1/4.
Hold on a second. I gotta get my calculator. Anyway, so it's you gotta do the parentheses first because it's please excuse my dear Aunt Sally and all that good stuff.
PEMDAS.
Yeah, PEMDAS or whatever. So it's 18 by 18.
324 divided by 144. It's
No, you got to do the times 500 divided by 144.
Oh.
That gives you 1125 CFM max face velocity. because you do the parentheses and
Best
then you
podcast ever.
So 324. You say times
the 500.
324 times 500.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, and where's the 500 coming from? That's just the unit.
That's your constant. If it's a non-filter back grill, you don't exceed 500 feet per minute across the grill, right? Or it will be noisy.
I haven't heard
across
that. I haven't heard across.
Okay.
Forever.
So 500, that's just like industry stand. That's what you're always using.
Yes, that's a design standard. So it's like a constant, basically.
All right.
And then if the grill has a filter in it, it drops all the way down to 300 feet per minute. So
I want to try to simplify this.
I know.
Mainly so I
that's pretty simple.
But
so that's so
I get the math.
So wait, you have
Tyler,
1125 at that point. Is that what's that 1125?
That's your maximum CFM you want to pull through that grill, basically.
So this is where you start adjusting your fan speed on your return, right?
Or duct size.
Or duct size.
If you've got too big of a duct on it that is capable of pulling too many CFMs, So let's just say.
Why can't you just make the return grill bigger?
Or you can do that if you have the space, if you have the space.
I'm always trying to figure out options.
But it's one of those things that the reason I sent it to Nick is because I'm like, once you cover that shit up, now you're not necessarily married to it, because if the customer complains enough, you're going to fix it if you're a good contractor, which obviously any of us would.
He's like Holmes on Holmes. He'll pull the whole kitchen out.
Yeah.
if that thing's
so all you do is you put like wax paper in there so it's really, really loud. Then you pull the wax paper out and be like, see, isn't that much better now?
So
no reaction at all.
The point is, like, you could check this stuff as, general contractors. That's kind of the point.
That's how you finished it. You said you can check this. You don't need someone. You don't need the HVAC guy.
You don't need me to do this. He should know that. He, she, whoever, shim, whatever, should know how to do it. But if they're not the ones doing it, at the end of the day, you need to go behind them,
right.
And check.
All right, so say you have 1,125 cubic feet per minute. What size duct is the max that you would use on that?
Oh, that's a whole different question. It depends if it's round,
right?
It depends if it's round. Yeah, yes. It depends if it's round metal, flex, square metal, lined metal, ductboard. They all have a different friction rate, so they all have a different capability of CFM, basically. Of what they can do.
So the friction. All right, we're digging deep. The friction of ductwork plays into. Okay.
Basically, the friction in the ductwork. I'm trying to think how to explain it. The friction rate of the ductwork is what determines how much CFM it can pull.
Sure.
But then there's a lot more. I don't want to go like.
No, that's fine.
That's an oversimplified thing, but basically, a flex, a smooth round metal duct, or regular smooth rectangle duct, they're all going to do a different amount of CFM or be capable of a different amount of CFM. So that's really kind of a question for whoever's doing the job, but you could check just brass tacks if it's loud, and you could do a rough calculation yourself and find out. Like, so if you say you see a 18-inch duct on an 18 by 18 or basically an 18 by 18 grill and it's whistling like a son of a bitch, then you go, okay, either I need to make this grill bigger, not me, but in your guys' case, I need to have the AC guy out here, the HVAC guy, to come fix this.
Mm-hmm.
It either needs to make the grill bigger or he needs to add more returns or something needs to be done. And like, other than comfort issues, sound is a big thing that people call about.
Yeah.
They don't want to hear their AC going. They just don't want to hear it.
Right.
So
that's what puts me to sleep at night.
It doesn't bother me either, actually. But some people, it's like the end of the world. They don't want to hear.
I wouldn't say it's the end of the world for me, but if we're watching TV and I can hear the duct scream behind me, that drives me crazy.
Is it your return or your supply?
Supply.
I don't even have that.
You probably need bigger ducts.
It's probably kinked. I
mean, it could be that. Could be the grill itself too sometimes, but.
Oh yeah, I definitely take the grills out, and it's quieter. Definitely.
Yeah.
Then I lose a toy down it, and it's all over.
Oh yeah, you guys have them in the freaking floor up there. I forgot.
We got basements and stuff.
Yeah, you got basements.
Yeah, first floor is usually in the floor.
Always so jealous of the HVAC guys there because they get to work in the basement, just lamping along, standing up.
Yeah, you have crawl spaces.
Not many. Not many anymore. My house is crawl space because it's really old, but most of them are attics.
You'd rather crawl space than attic, just for coolness. Depends Florida, on the height of the attic.
Yeah. Well, in Florida, you don't really want to be in the crawl space either because we have
snakes.
It's like we're like second. We're like second only to Australia. That can kill you.
Yeah.
So alligators, snakes, rabid, wild ass possums, all sorts.
Yeah,
of
you
stuff.
guys have all those people who let go of their exotic.
Tame possum?
And there's people who let go of their exotic pets down there.
Yeah, Burmese pythons. Yeah. I mean, you name it.
Is Dog the bounty hunter from Florida?
He's from Hawaii, right?
He's from Hawaii or something. I think he's from Iowa, by way of Hawaii. People from Iowa are gonna hate me. Great.
I just listened to his podcast. It's awful.
Who?
Dog the Bounty Hunter was on Joe Rogan.
He's on Joe Rogan.
His wife just died, I think.
Yeah, I think she did. R.I.P. Poor dog.
Hashtag R.I.P.
Poor dog.
Jake Bruin,
what if you found Dog the Bounty Hunter in a crawl space? Jesus. Talk about scary.
Oh, God.
Are we off topic?
A little
bit.
But I think...
I thought this was in the notes. Hold on, let me check the outline. No, that wasn't.
Ryan, in your message, you said that there was things that you wanted to chat about. Did we hit everything that you wanted to kind of shed light on in your industry?
I mean, yeah, pretty much. The main thing, we pretty much touched on all of it. I just do think that mechanical guys and general contractors, do need to come to a common ground because, to a degree at least, and I'm not saying that they need to, general contractors need to overpay either, because that's not the case by a long shot. But we are very rapidly heading to a place where mechanical guys are like, I'm just going to do service and retros, and you know what? Screw you and your new construction.
Yeah,
I like the new construction market. I really do. But there's a lot of guys that hate it, won't allow it in their business, period. And they're good contractors.
I think one of the most frustrating things, and not to totally argue John's point, but doing the duct layout on site, right? Like getting to that point and then be like, all right, where are we gonna put the duct work? To an extent, I think there needs to be some in between there, because the full drawings, you end up reworking them anyway because of site conditions. And I always am jealous of kind of the commercial side of it with my high-rise experience, where everything was three-dimensionally, drawn. Everything was coordinated. A piece of 3/4 inch conduit was coordinated. Yep. Where residential, I mean, it's rare. It's rare if you're ever going to do that at all. Right. Where I just hate that fire drill at the when it's. I need to put my ductwork here, or that's where it fit, or the ductwork's up and it's whether it's
go ahead. Who do you give the priority to? Is it the plumber or the ductwork guy?
Ductwork guy.
Okay. Thanks, ductwork guy. Like for you, what's your?
I don't know.
No, like right now, your job that you're doing right now, who's the priority?
Plumber.
Yeah, same
here.
Yeah. They always say that, but it's a hell of a lot easier to offset a freaking 4-inch drain than it is,
I just think
20 by
I
20
feel like
duct.
air doesn't need to be pitched.
No, it doesn't.
Well played, sir.
It doesn't necessarily, but when you've got a little tiny
But
4-inch
I
pipe,
really think there should be better level of coordination. Like I think that is a huge thing that we could be, that we as general contractors could be better at to help the mechanicals. Where having a better coordination, having a better plan, whether it's a meeting that everyone comes in and we walk the job and make sure we're all on the same page. I don't know, but
I mean, for me personally, most of our jobs, we're on the job at the same time as the plumber. So
that doesn't necessarily make it easier, nor does it make it
But
harder.
you could be at the same time. Like my guys, I have my HVAC guys start in the attic, and my plumbers run all the drain lines first.
Yeah, I mean,
that's
there's nothing wrong with that.
They're working
and
from the bottom up, and then you guys are working top down.
And we can also talk in between if we see something, you know. A lot of these guys, we've worked together before. We see something, we say something, you know. Mm-hmm. And the plumber also knows, you know, hey, or maybe even before the job starts, hey, I'm not gonna run my waste or whatever right down the middle of the freaking ceiling. You know, I'm gonna try to go one way or another.
What's your concern for coordination? Like, I feel like my guys go in
there. Every job, it's, well, hey, where am I going to run?
Your stuff's a little bit more complicated, though.
Yeah, but
Who are you usually? You're usually having your plumber come first, then HVAC.
That's not the issue that I'm having. The issue that I'm
having, like the actual layout itself.
The actual hey, where am I popping up my ERV?
Sure, I'm just curious.
Why are we doing this today? Why, we've spent the last, X amount of months working on design, and we've had plenty of opportunity, and now it's, this is being brought to my attention live.
I agree 100%.
That and I just think that because I don't know, and it could be just in this particular circumstance, right? I'm thinking of one job that we ran into. It was, there was
probably not. I mean, even Johnny said like he waits till all that other stuff is done to figure out where the registers are going and all that stuff. I mean, it happens all the time, especially in residential, because I think
that could be totally on the GC as us. Like, hey, like I sit down with my PM. It's like, hey, listen, like this is our layout. We need to think about the fact that we're gonna have ERV exhaust, and let's locate all that stuff now. Let's figure out on the plan where it makes sense.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
who are you having dictate that, Nick? Regardless of who's coming in first, is your priority a plumber, or because there's got to be like, yeah, let's say they can both work together, but like, who's taking? If you don't have that choice, or when it comes down to it, would you rather your plumber come in first or HVAC?
I don't know.
I think we label everything. So like before anyone even gets there, I'm labeling where HVAC is going for mechanicals in the basement, so I know where my duct run's going. And then I have all my electrical, so I have clearance off that box in the basement. And then I'm also running all my exhaust outside and labeling those, so that way I know where all my intakes and my exhausts are going, because that mechanical room can get pretty fussy.
Yeah.
Between a tankless system and then outside windows and then where the gas meter is going. And there's some priorities that happen in that.
And then you have service clearances and all that other stuff. I think it can get crazy fast.
Right. And I think it definitely comes with experience, right? And and perfect example, we got to the end of the job, it's like they had a condensate pump. And like, hey, where am I draining this? We had no plumbing within even in that room, like for a drain. The drain, everything was in the other part of the home. And I remember walking one of Matt Reisinger's jobs, and it was right when we had that issue, and I was talking about it. And one of the details they have systems on, like say the second floor, and they locate them close to a bathroom,
laundry,
and then they put no bathroom, and they'll put a dishwasher tee under the sink, and then bring the condensate in under the sink into a dishwasher tee.
Yeah, we're not allowed to do that in Florida, but I see that in other states a lot.
Why can't you do that?
It's just against our mechanical code. It has to have a dedicated drain outside, period. And then we have
outside?
To have yeah, it goes all the way outside.
Yeah, we have an overflow. Overflow from the pan will go outside. That way you're visibly able to see it.
That's supposed to be in a conspicuous location per code, like over a window, somewhere visible.
Yeah.
And then our primary also goes outside. And it has to be just dedicated outside.
But it's it's those not stupid, but those little things that it frustrates me when we get to a point in the job. It's like, why didn't we think of that?
But
And I'm not putting that on him. I'm not putting that on anyone else. It's just that as we learn, it's like, why aren't we picking? We need
I agree.
next time. The first thing I'm gonna say is, all right, cool. That's a great mechanical room. We got to make sure we can drain our condensate.
I agree, 100%. I hate pumps. If I don't have to use them, I don't.
Exactly. If you can prevent them, prevent it.
Right.
It's one less. It's one less thing to fail.
I agree 100%.
Yeah, we put ours in the trap of the laundry. So that way they don't drip.
What about your basement?
Basement? I don't know. We usually put it
Sump?
into a sump.
Floor drain or a sump.
Yeah,
probably.
sump. Yeah, usually floor drains are sketchy because the traps.
But yeah, up in the attic, you're running it over to the drain, the laundry.
And we're running all the way down so it doesn't drip.
Right.
We've let guys cut them short by like 2 inches and then it drips.
Yeah.
And that drip at night, man.
Oh yeah,
Dude, it's like you couldn't extend that down, so you extend it right into the trap now.
Yeah.
So there's no more drips.
I mean, that makes perfect sense. I mean, I also think that I have a commercial background in construction too, where we did, the Trimble layout. Everything is laid out. The reflected ceiling pan, there's an overlay plan, and if there's a freaking discrepancy, 9 out of 10 times somebody's shit is in the wrong place. Period.
Right.
I mean, everything's dialed. Yes, there's human error, but it's almost everything is dialed. But I can't tell you how many countless hours of unbillable time of mine I've spent on jobs going, oh, no, it can't go here. Even though it says it on the plan, it has to go here and back and forth, and tried to nail this down for weeks and weeks and weeks ahead of time. And granted, there's some, space constraints and the almighty ceiling height. Everybody wants to have 500-foot ceilings now, and that's all stuff to deal with. But I think, yes, maybe some of it, if what like Johnny and Tyler and you guys do, like labeling stuff, hardly anybody does that here. Maybe 1 or 2 guys. So like, I'm always like, oh man, I wish they did that. Even if not for AC stuff, just for my own layout, like in the job, like knowing where the cabinet package is going relative to my stuff,
Right.
Knowing where all that kind of stuff, hi-hats, cove lights, soffits. I mean, I need to know all that stuff if my stuff's going to be center and symmetrical, so sometimes, I would love to see that happen, but at the end of the day, when these layout things conflict per plan, in my mind, it's the architect's fault, because I've been on plenty of jobs where the architect drew it and nothing had a problem, and like sometimes, I know you guys have seen it too. You open a bid set or a set of plans, a final set of plans, and you go through it and you're 1 page off and you're like obviously that's not going to work, so the architect's getting paid all this money to draw this stuff. Like, I get nobody's perfect, but if you're drawing knowingly conflicted stuff, and that's why most, especially mechanical guys, but most GCs say it too. Like,
I just feel like we know the economy right now is so busy. There's not like staff architects that are really they're coming up with the overall floor plan and aesthetics. There's associates doing this kind of stuff. Oh yeah, that's why I stopped doing it with having anyone draw it, because it's a waste of funds. Right. So
I mean, I tend to agree.
I just have our guys run through the house. So for us, I run through and I mark out all my centers for vanities, toilets, showers, all that stuff throughout the whole house. So now HVAC on the first floor knows where these drains are going to be located. Right. You get me? So it's kind of obvious. So plumbers don't have to do anything except for start running pipe. And then HVAC, the only thing I ask them to do on the second floor is line up all your registers with windows. If that's what you're going to hit for your losses, it's fine. Right. And then downstairs is quickly just Sharpie out all your returns and all your supplies, just so I know where they are, because maybe there's an active where I know that someone's going to walk in and go left, or let's say a mudroom, something that seems inconspicuous, but I want to know where it's going to fall, so it's on the back side of the door, not when you open it and you see it. Little stuff, and then they just Sharpie it out day one, so that way I can move it and I can Sharpie over it. I'm telling you, people think I'm crazy, but Sharpie is like the buy. I will make moves with Sharpie, and it will be done the next day, and I didn't talk to anybody.
Right.
Like everything just kind of falls into place because you write it out, write a note, make it legible as if, like, I think about it as if my kids were going to come and read it. Like, that's how you have to think, is like, I need to put a note.
Right.
That way Hunter can come and read it and go, I know what I need to do here.
I agree, and then there's no lost production in the freaking powwow of talking about it.
But, dude, I just made you more money.
I know, no, I mean, that's a good thing. That's
exactly. But that's my point is like.
And you didn't waste your own time.
But it just, when the economy is so good, is like, how do you get guys to come to you when you pay them on time, you give them work, everyone else is doing the same thing? I need to make it simpler for them. So
right. That's part of it.
And I want to learn this stuff anyways. Like, I went to our Cambridge project on Monday, and I was like, I haven't really walked a project like this with Trevor, our new guy. And yeah, everything was labeled. Every door opening, what it was, what was labeled, every center. I'm like, I like this.
Right.
The boy's got my jam. He's going to work on his handwriting, but I like it all.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, and it's good for both the AC contractor and the general contractor.
Dude, it's good for anybody. It's good for someone sneaking through the house. Someone sneaks through the house and goes, wow, man, they got it on point.
How dope would it be if you knew how to graffiti, though?
Yeah, I would love that.
For your whole house?
I got an old airbrush
sick.
kit in my house.
Seriously, like to label everything, you just graffitied it?
That'd be tight.
I think if anyone can do it, Nick can.
I've never graffitied.
No, you can hire someone.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that, no, I mean, I agree 100%. I think that it's great to have all that stuff laid out because you get a lot of lost time in production in that little powwow of talking about it. Or you just make the executive decision and say, for now, it's here. Walk away. You know, I'll see that it's there, or you can shoot me an email, text message, whatever. Hey, we moved from the left side of the mudroom to the right side of the mudroom, south, north, whatever. You know,
I think what it comes down to is that communication, and I think it is very much, you know, a correction on the GC's part, but also from your trade, I see, you know, it being. I don't know. I see it being more of an issue where it's they're coming in not with, you know, they're coming in with not a solid plan, and they're kind of making it fit where it fits, rather not necessarily having a conversation about it, but having the opportunity where it's like, hey, I need some direction here, and again, it's I think it's on the GC to facilitate that.
It should be.
Right? Yeah, I mean, at that end, yes, and as Johnny said, how do you attract these other people? You know, I think it's, maybe the guys that are in new construction know that you pay on time and know that you're paying good and all that good shit. But what about the guys that you've never seen them on a construction job? They may have great construction guys, great duck guys. Mm-hmm. But how the hell are they going to know that you're a good GC? You're one of the guys they want to work for. How are they going to know?
Right.
You know, unless they follow you on Instagram or something, you know, and half the air conditioning industry, HVAC industry is stuck in the Stone Age anyway. You know, they barely have a Google page, let alone an Instagram page. So that's, you know, that's part of it. But again, how are they going to know? You know, how are they going to know that Vintage Builders is one of the guys you want to work for, you know, or, you know, NS or, you know, Tyler or whatever, like they're just not going to know. So that's a component too, and because there's so many of them, like I said, out of like 200 people that answered the survey, 95% don't do new construction anymore, and used to. You know, back in the 90s, back before the bust, or even until after the, you know, the subprime, you know, the recession, or up until a few years ago, and then we realized at the price we had to do the jobs, we were losing our ass, or whatever the case may be. And you take that with a grain of salt and just say, okay, maybe 40% of those guys don't know their numbers and they don't know how to bid the job. Okay, that's fine, but that's still half of air conditioning contractors pretty much that will not touch new construction.
Yeah.
For whatever reasons. I mean, it's a lot.
I would have never thought that it was that high.
It's crazy high. And And it's the same pretty much for electricians, except for probably a little bit less. Plumbers are kind of the only exception to mechanical because plumbers just make crazy money no matter what.
Turd herders.
Yeah. Freaking poop wranglers.
It's funny. My electrician says that all the time. Is that, you know, I think one of his most profitable things is like knob and tube replacement or any renovation work. So
Yeah.
you know,
I mean,
but to know that it's that high in the HVAC industry is interesting.
Yeah, my old electrician, I guess he was kind of when the economy was booming in the 90s, was doing like all new construction and just like hiring basically monkeys to pull wire, and just had like a ton of people. And then when the economy tanked, he basically started focusing on knob and tube replacements because there's a ton of old houses around us. And then like when things started picking back up, he basically got completely away from new construction and just did remodel work and knob and tube replacement, and like stayed smaller and basically made more money with less volume. But he, I think he's closing up shop shortly here, but he like lasted the rest of his career basically specializing in that.
That's kind of exactly what's happened in the HVAC industry. Is the people that did survive and didn't, you know, completely lose it all, they just service and replacement carried them through, and they realized, you know, while I may even like doing new construction, that like I don't need it.
Yeah.
I don't need it. You know, the money is not there, not at all. Actually, as a matter of fact, it's what almost sank my business. Not even necessarily for the people that defaulted and everything, just like the extra labor and all that other stuff. So they just never went back into it. So that's where a lot of them got lost too. And then it's just, you know, in perpetuity of like all, you know, all the other contractors saying, oh, don't even get involved in it. Where I'm always on those things going like, well, I do new construction and we do just fine, but I understand that we specialize too.
Sure.
So
do you think a lot of that's just because they're dealing directly with homeowners rather than with contractors?
For me?
No, like in general, in the industry, when you're interviewing those guys, do you think a big part of that is now they're going direct to the consumer and not working through contractors or working for builders?
Yeah, I mean that's a big part of it. I think it's that, and I mean I think that's probably a huge part of it actually. But who knows if they're asking who knows if they're asking the right questions, if they're trying to, you know, get meetings with the homeowner and the contractor and all these people or not. I mean, it's something that I adamantly try to do, but I know not a lot of people do it. I only know I learned it from another guy that I worked with that did it, had a smaller company, stayed smaller, and just specialized in certain new construction, service, and replacement. I mean, that's where I got into having these meetings with people and doing all that kind of stuff. So I don't know. I mean, the other thing is just a lot of GCs have bad reputations and stuff, but I refuse to believe that everybody's like that, you know?
Yeah, I mean, there's an average, there's good, there's bad.
Of course, and it's HVAC contractors too.
Right.
Obviously, so,
But
you know,
you had the right
everybody.
you had the right mindset, meaning you're not going to ignore those facts, but you're going to be aware of it. So if there's a flag,
Trust but verify.
Yeah, exactly.
File my you know, notice to owners, you know.
Wait, he's on point. That was yesterday's episode. Trust but verify.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's just something I say all the time.
Jake said it like a handful of times on the podcast.
Trust but verify. File all my stuff, you know, so I have my lien rights and all that other stuff, and that's all I can really do.
Right.
You know?
Well, I think your industry. I'm excited to hear other HVAC guys' response to what you talked about and how, you know, the process in which you kind of present yourself, your bidding, the conversation you're having with the client, the the education that you're giving not only the client but the general contractor, and then trickling it down to a team, developing a team of guys that care and empowering them to learn. It'll be interesting. So if you guys have any feedback, we'd love to hear it. But where can we find you? What's your new Instagram handle since you changed
my
in the
new
middle
one
of this
is,
conversation?
what is it? It's in like native_air_ conditioning.
Hold on, wait. Let's try that again. Come on, this is like this is your big plug, man.
I know it's native_air_ conditioning.
Yep.
But from what I've seen, if you type in native air conditioning, you can find it. And then my website is nativeairfl.com. It's not a great website, so I'll tell that to anybody looking at it. Like it's a BS landing page that Google, that you do for putting stuff on Google. And then I'm on Facebook too.
What's the group that you have that you keep mentioning?
It's not my group, but we're on Facebook. It's the HVAC owners and managers group. And then there's another one called Service Einsteins. Those are the two good ones. The rest of them, and then there's another like some plumbing ones, because as I'm sure you guys up north, a lot of the plumbing contractors are also your HVAC contractor. Mm-hmm. It's not that way here. It's a separate state license, but up there it is. It's not or whatever, but there's some plumbing ones that are good, but those two groups are like the two best ones that I know of. And yeah, there's some riffraff, but they're the best ones. But yeah, and then if you want to email me, it's ryan@nativeairconditioning.com. It's all spelled out. But yeah, those groups on there are good, and there's a lot of helpful stuff on there if anybody wants to get on them.
That's awesome, dude.
I'm interested to see the feedback from some of the air conditioning contractors too, actually, or what.
I think you're right. I think I think your industry is lacking in the the community side and stuck in you said the Stone Age and being driven by the vendors. So I'm excited. Yeah, like I said, excited to see how things can change from here, and and hopefully this has done its part in doing that.
There's less of the hashtag collaboration over competition and more of the like us versus them, which I have friends in the industry like around me that we throw work back and forth. We help each other in any way we can, but like as a whole, it's very like secluded and sequestered off, whatever. But that'd be interesting. So well, anyway, thanks for having me on,
Ryan. Yeah, I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
We'll talk soon. Man.
All right, thanks.
Episode 86, General Rudeness, 2 stars. Always fun to listen to. Here's the next one.
Who was
Wait
86?
a second. What's the most recent review?
Always fun to listen to. The B.
Who was 86? Who was our guest?
Read the whole thing.
Oh, did you write this earlier?
No, I didn't read
this. This has become.
I'm like,
he's
read the card.
I washed out the bad one with a good one. This has become a regular part of my self-discipline to listen or read something every week to help build, grow, define, and develop my company.
I feel like we were at that one.
I feel like we did too.
But what's the 2-star? Let's read the 2-star review.
Episode 86, General Rudeness.
Who was the guest on 86?
It was like the last one we did where the guy bought his company.
Oh yeah.
I listened to a few dozen episodes. Most have some good content, but the host can be tangential. I don't know if that's right. Tangential.
Dismissive and rude.
Episode 85 was some of the most. He wasn't a fan of me.
Yeah.
We can read it.
What is it?
Listen to a few.
Did they say tangential?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tangential, dismissive, and rude.
They Googled that shit.
Episode 85 was some of the most cringe-worthy podcasting I've ever heard. It was obvious they thought their guest was somehow cheating or jumping line by purchasing a company versus building one. There's always a hint of closed-mindedness and insecurity, especially from John. But this episode was hard to listen to. I want to like the podcast and probably will continue to listen, but I wish they'd tighten their ish up. I mean, that's fine. It's constructive criticism. I would disagree with almost all of it, especially we weren't.
That sounds like some hate mail.
Well, I think that.
But they're gonna keep listening.
Yeah, but
the fuck.
So
why don't you give me a good review then?
Hold on, isn't this supposed to be on the podcast?
It is. Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Either way, appreciate you listening and continue to listen. I would disagree with the cheating and jumping the line. That wasn't what we were getting at. I just wanted to peel out of him how he did it.
People don't understand how you try and ask a polite question to somebody and they give you a one-word answer. So then you pry a little deeper and you find a different angle to try and come at somebody to try and get some sort of a reaction or something that's going to give someone else the impression that they want to go out and do this themselves or take that angle. Or it's so tough, and I don't know how it comes across.
It doesn't matter. The point is we're trying to is cultivate the right word. I feel like I'm trying to use it. But cultivate a conversation around topics that people want to hear. But I'm also really glad that he's listening all the way through the podcast to know that his review would be read. As always, guys, you can find us on Instagram, @ModernCraftsman. Email us at info@themoderncraftsman.org or themoderncraftsman.org is our website. And don't forget, what were you going to say, Tyler?
That they can keep emailing us from their parents' basement.
I was going to talk about December 12th, Cape Cod Lumber. CCL. We are going to be doing an event there with a handful of other guests that are going to be involved.
It's going to be a good event.
Yeah. And if you guys were at the summit.
Thanks for saying hi.
Yeah. As always, thanks for listening, guys.
Thank you.
Hope you guys really enjoy this.
Don't be so tangential, John. Just another MC Monday.